conversation. So again, thank you for hosting me. I want to start our story with a very intimate narrative. I want to tell you about where I was born and how I want to start from the micro and show you how this trickled into the macro. So I was born to Lebanese parents. We are 6 siblings. I'm number 5. You can see it's the girl in the darker gray dress. From my father's side, this is a map of my aunts and uncles and the nationalities that they've acquired after the war in Lebanon, after they left the country. And this is my mother's side of the family. And you can see, again, we come from I come from a very big family. I have a very big tribe, and this tribe is now all over the world. And to summarize quickly, we are 56 cousins with 12 nationalities that is shared between us. So it becomes then interesting because of what happened in Lebanon during the war in the 1970s. The human condition of the people who lived in Lebanon is very similar to mine. I am not an exception. Every family in Lebanon has somebody who's living abroad, who's dual national, who comes back for the summer. And unfortunately, this is not only the case in Lebanon. We've seen this in Palestine before. This happened in Iraq, and this happened in Syria. So what might seem like an exception is actually now the norm for many of the Arab countries who have seen the displacement due to political situations, economic situations. So it has become a normalized human condition, and Arabs living in the diaspora is not something that is now alien to many people in the Arab world. Thinking of that fact and thinking of how we perceive ourselves as citizens of the world now rather than diasporic citizens living in different communities. I just want to, I started with this idea because I want to link the human condition that people in my part of the world are living. And I want to share with you the story of 3 bombings that I experienced in my life, in my lifetime. I've experienced many more, but I'll only highlight, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, 3, to show you the repercussions of these situations on our archives, on our narratives, on our knowledge sharing, on our communities. So I studied at the American University in Beirut, and this beautiful clock tower, the year I joined in 1991, was actually rubble. It was bombed and it was on the ground, and that building housed the library. So I walk into this beautiful campus with these beautiful trees overlooking the sea, but no library because the library was destroyed. And that is, as a young woman growing up in my early 20s, that was a formative kind of experience for me, having to live through or see the restructuring of this building. By the time I graduated, it was already built and books were put back in this library. So that experience was very interesting for me. I was one of the earliest to graduate from the graphic design program. And the founder of the program, my teacher, Leila Musfi, studied with Catherine McCoy in Cranbrook. And she came to Lebanon with the question, which was the topic of her MA, what is the meeting point between Western and Middle Eastern art? And can design be legible to both cultures? So she came to Lebanon in the early 90s with that question in mind. How do we bridge cultures already? Having lived through the war, having lived in the States. So she designed this design program. Some of the brilliant minds in Lebanon were teaching at the time. These are some of my teachers. And for 4 years, we engaged in conversations on through our very limited resources and limited knowledge at the time. There were, as I told you, it was post-war Lebanon. And this group of people was so inspiring that they graduated till today over 500 designers, but they are really the impact of their work was clear to me when they organized this exhibition called Revolution Evolution, and they put on display the work of all of their students of the past 20 years. And I walked into that space, and it was such an overwhelming, beautiful feeling to see the history of so many designers who passed through the same school come together in one place. So an idea that started in Beirut in 1990, 91 or 92 has now students in all of these cities in different parts of the world, living, practicing, communicating, building networks, and developing work related to design, about design and about design in the Arab world. So to me, that was very inspiring. And cut to 2011, I was in Cairo and I was invited to create our own program here, which was extremely inspired by the Beirut module, because Leila is a dear friend, and I was constantly consulting with her on what should I do in Cairo now that I have a chance to build this program. And I wanted to fill in a gap that was really pressing for me, which was the lack of knowledge on Arab design. So I developed these 3 courses. I mean, it's a full curriculum that we developed, but to me, these 3 courses were key because they were looking at the history of design in the region. So calligraphy, graphic design, and advertising per se. And so academia on the side and the bombing of the Beirut library on the side, what was going on in Syria in the past decade affected all of us in different ways. But to me personally, as an Islamic art historian and somebody who is fascinated by Islamic art history, it was extremely painful for me to see the destruction of cultural heritage, the loss of lives, the migrations of millions of people, the destruction that I felt like I was reliving the nightmare of my childhood of what I was witnessing in Lebanon. But this specific minaret had this beautiful calligraphic Kufic script, and it was not only any minaret. It was really what they call a culmination of Mediterranean architecture. So it was really an important symbol, and to see it destroyed, I created an artwork just reflecting on the destruction of this minaret. So not just libraries, but also cultural heritage that we see being physically destroyed in our countries every day. And I will share a few slides just to show you the beauty, how I look at Islamic art and what Islamic art means to me, the systems, the beauty, the elegance, the sensitivity, the philosophy of connecting to the universe. So these are examples from the Fatimid era, the Ilkhanid eras, the Mamluk dynasties in Egypt, the Ottoman Empire, the Safavid Empire. This is to me, this is beyond beauty. I remember when Samir Saigh, our teacher, first started showing us slides of Islamic art in our Arabic typography class. It was then that I felt overwhelmed, and I decided to continue my study. So to me, these are not buildings. They're not just structures. They are our history. They contain our memory. They contain our identity. So to see them destroyed or not cared for or neglected is extremely painful for me to witness. This is, again, examples from the Ottoman Empire, I'm just sharing with you quick systems. And finally, the last bombing I will share with you today is a bombing that took place of the Islamic Museum in Cairo in 2014. So it's not libraries, it's not just buildings, but also museums. And so you feel like suddenly you have nowhere to go. Like everything that stands for knowledge and culture is being destroyed in one way or the other, either by bombing or by neglect or whatever the reason is. And this museum is a classroom for me. I take students to teach them in this museum in Cairo every semester. So losing that museum was like losing a very important classroom and losing the opportunity for me to connect my students with their past in the city. So come the 1,000 Times No project, when a curator invited me to participate for the memory of 100 years of Islamic art in Europe, And this was 11 years ago at the House der Kunst. And I felt that this is my opportunity to start documenting my interests and my knowledge. And at the same time, it was a very strong statement saying 1,000 no to everything that I am rejecting. And this book, to me, was the first archive that I can think of, because I was worried about these letters and I wanted to bring them all together in one place. And putting these letters in an installation and in a book was really, for a few months, I was only working and just sticking these lam alifs on these plexiglass pieces and not seeing the size of it. And then the first time I saw it in Munich in Germany, I stood next to it and I felt this sense of empowerment to have all this history behind me that is, and this is one letter form. And imagine the manuscripts, the buildings, the lives, the calligraphers, the culture that this one letter came from. And to me, this was the beginning of discovery, but also like looking at my work as an archival process and how to document whatever I can find and create something solid or substantial or permanent out of it. And to me, a book is the most permanent thing I have access to. And so the revolution started in Cairo. I started spraying the nose on the streets. And then the political situation changed and I started painting in different cities around the world because Cairo was no longer accessible to me. And I always go to poetry because poetry has this comforting, it has a comforting and reassuring reassuring sense. And the poetry of Mahmoud Darwish for me at the time was very relevant because he's the Palestinian poet of resistance. And if you're aware of the Palestinian condition, you know that they were the first in the Arab world to have to deal with the loss of identity, with the loss of land, with the erasure of their culture. And to me, Mahmoud Darwish summarized all of that sentiment. And so I tried to take his poetry and start painting it in different walls around the world. This was in Vancouver. The first poem I painted, Stand at the Corner of a Dream and Fight. And then the walls started coming one after the other. This was in New York for the Imprisoned Butterfly. This was in Madison. It reads No to the Impossible. And I'm always trying to reinterpret what Arabic looks like. We love life if we had access to it in Marrakesh. On this earth, there are things worth living for in Tokyo. Those who have no land have no sea in Greece. My country is not a suitcase in Beirut. But then this also gets covered and this also gets erased. And because of the nature of the craft, because of the nature of graffiti and street art, it's open to the weather and it's ephemeral and it can be erased in any minute. But I kept painting these walls. This was in Amsterdam. One day we will be who we want to be. The journey has not started and the road has not ended. And this was in Stavanger. And I'm always trying to experiment with what Arabic looks like. How can we reinvent the shape of Arabic? How can we change the way we look at Arabic? How can we bring Arabic out of its calligraphic history into the now and into the future? So my solutions are squares, are rectangles, are illegible sometimes, but it really doesn't matter because it's not legibility that I'm seeking, but rather the statement of this is Arabic, it's painted in big, it's in a different country. Can you connect with it as an artwork or try to have it relate to you in one way or the other? This was in Paris. It reads, I Will Dream. And this was painted in Hawaii at Shangri-La. My people will return as air and light and water. But then the walls started getting bigger and the communities coming around the walls started getting bigger. This was painted in Lincoln. We will not repent our dreams no matter how often they break. And this was the last wall I painted pre-COVID in 2019. All the hearts of the people are my identity, release me of my passport. So the walls were no longer about the walls, but rather the communities that come around the walls. and the people who come and the stories that are generated because of these walls. And so the walls needed to be documented in a book. And so I published, again, another book that documents this process. It's called At the Corner of a Dream. And it's a documentation of the journey of leaving Cairo, but also of all the walls that maybe you will never have the chance to see them together. And I thought bringing them together in a book would be a valuable experience. And another important archive that I collaborated on with my co-author and colleague Haitham Nawar is producing a book on the history of Arab graphic design. And to us, this was because of the lack of archive, because of the loss of knowledge, because of the designers that I never learned about growing up. I wanted to offer our students and our community the chance to connect with these designers and the chance to learn about them. And so this was another archive, a written archive in the form of a book. And finally, the last book I published is a memoir reflecting on 10 years of the revolution, documenting all of the work that has been erased on the streets of Cairo. And again, this is another form of preserving memory and keeping the story alive, because right now I have students who walk into my classroom who know nothing about the revolution. They've never heard about it. They don't know anything about it. So, and this is what we say about marginalized narratives, and who marginalizes these narratives and marginalizes these archives. And how do we make sure that we leave evidence and we leave a testament to this knowledge that is being rapidly lost? And then I felt that these institutions, these structures, universities, museums, and places that I was connecting with were all very interesting and important, and the books were also important. But I felt like we needed to go one more step in kind of bringing in a different kind of community together. So we created a Type Lab, which is a research space hoping to develop and disseminate knowledge about the Arabic script. And we were hoping that it would become a space for research, conferences, fellowships, attracts educators, designers, calligraphers, historians. So just bringing the community together to have a conversation around the Arabic script. And so we got a grant and we launched the project, the Encyclopedia of Arabic Letters, where we are trying, this is a very long project. It has been really over a decade that I'm working on it now. And it's still a lot, it's still in the works, but we've secured a collaboration with the Bibliothèque Alexandrina. We have one of their historians on board, and we are trying again to document as many Arabic letters and trace them. And I think when we eventually finish, this will be a great tool for type designers to look at their history and be able to develop faster solutions for the future. And then COVID, and then everything stopped, and even the walls stopped, and all the project and the world literally paused. And we thought that since we cannot go to the world now anymore, then maybe we should bring the world back to us. And since we're staying all at home, why don't we shift online and create an Instagram page for Type Lab, because this is what we had available. And so with a beautiful team, we started building the Type Lab setup. We started posting these simple posts saying that we are Type Lab, we want to build an encyclopedia of Arabic letters. And we started posting these letters, sharing it with our community and testing. For example, one feedback we got is that people really want to, and which is again what is delaying the encyclopedia, is that people really want to see the picture where this letter came from. And so we are revising all of our database to recreate these forms, but also put them in context so that people can know where they came from. And then we said, why don't we start, okay, these things we are reading and teaching about in books, why don't we start introducing them to our community? And we celebrated, for example, International Women's Day, bringing and posting about women type designers to create more awareness about them. And we started posting slowly about calligraphers, type designers, and calligraphers who have passed on, who are still alive. And we started featuring their work, writing a short bio about them, just introducing them to a bigger audience. Even at first we posted in English, and then we started translating always and making sure that the knowledge is accessible in both languages, so that people from all parts of the world can read it. And we felt that there is a big lack in Arabic content on design in the Arab world, and translating that knowledge to Arabic was an extra load for us, but it was worth it because it was really good for our community. And people who cannot read English or do not have access to these resources now slightly did. So we then started creating online talk series. And these were like campfire talk series with one designer or two designers or historians on certain themes. And the first theme we started looking at was letters for children, designing letters for children. And we hosted Walid Tahir, who is a brilliant children's books illustrator. We hosted Muhammad Hassan, who is also a brilliant historian, Nadine Touma, who's a children's publisher, and Yasmin Mutawa, Yasmin Mutawa was in conversation with Nadine Shaheen, and they were talking about designing letters for legibility and children. And this first theme was very interesting because it brought people from different parts of the world on a theme that might seem common, but then they have no place to converse. So this was interesting. And all of these talks are recorded and posted on the page for reference. So now when I want to tell one of my students to look somebody up, I tell them, go to the page, click on that link, or I send them a link. So it became a resource, an educational resource that I am using and advising people to use in their classroom. The second theme was on the ladies of letters. And to me, it was very important to highlight the role of women, because in calligraphy, it's always the men that are represented. So I wanted to bring together a group of women who would talk about their experience with letters. And it was important for me to feature women from different generations. So I was really very thrilled to find Arlette Haddad, who is currently 70 years old and has been designing Arabic fonts for the past 50 years of her life. And not many people know about her. So she was our first speaker in Sayyidat al-Huruf. And it was really overwhelming how beautiful her work with, how humble she is, and how generous she was with her knowledge. And then we hosted Yara Khouri, a lady in her 40s, based in Lebanon, an educator at AUB, but also an award-winning type designer. And she shared her journey with us. And then we hosted Nuha Abu Khatwa, who's a historian and who is researching female Mamluk calligraphers. And so she gave presentations about women calligraphers in the Mamluk era. So it's not just women now, but also women from the past that we wanted to bring to life. And then the last talk was a conversation between Naima and Azza, who are two brilliant type designers, one is based in Barcelona and the other is based in London. And they talked about their experience in designing script. And we felt that these talks were really not enough because there was so much to share. And the reactions were great. People were quite interested in learning more. So we created stories. And we invited 6 designers to send us stories from also women of letters, stories from their studios. And each of them sent us a story that we posted on a different week, where she talked about, and they are also, the youngest is in her 20s and the oldest is in her 40s. And they're all brilliant, they're all very dedicated, and they all shared their stories they opened their studios and they talked about their practice and they shared their work process. So this was also another way of engaging with our community and sharing knowledge on and about these Arab women designers to the greater community. In addition to the stories and the talks, we also did features of the women during the month of July. So again, we picked out women who could not participate in stories or talks. We created features about them. And the third theme that we did last year was type in cities, and we invited people from different cities to send us photos of script in the cities. It was COVID, we were all indoors, it was becoming claustrophobic. So we thought it would be lovely for us to see different Arab cities. And I'm glad to say that we got 2 cities from Palestine, Jerusalem and Ramallah. Sent us images, and we had Amman, Damascus, Baghdad, and Cairo. But then the bombing of Lebanon happened, and we couldn't get contributions from Beirut. And this is the interesting dynamic of working on a fast platform, is that you can create a reaction live quickly. So we paid a tribute to Beirut, and this is the only a block of, and then our newsfeed that looks like the Lebanese flag. 6 of us sent pictures from the city, and we shared our memories with the city, and we called for peace, and we asked people to donate to Beirut. So we included the theme. What was happening in the world was included within our theme, and we were able to react quickly to what was going on. And then we were dormant for a while for different reasons, and we took a break. And actually, I'm back on a break now, because it's been we just need to reflect on what's going on sometimes. But then this post was shared by Christian Serkis last February, where he was saying, listen, there's plagiarism taking place, and I'm not happy, and I think we should talk about it. And I thought, okay, let's dust our, let's do something about it, and let's bring the community together. This is a conversation, it's urgent. And so we created a talk series, Type, Design, and Intellectual Rights. And on the first panel, we invited literally 5 stars of the Arab type design and 1 copyright expert to talk about. And this was really, we had 600 people register, 500 people attend the talk, and 250 people sit on for the Q&A. So it was an astronomical number. I've never seen any number like that. But this meant one thing: the conversation was urgent. People wanted to talk about it, and this is why it was relevant, and this is why it was attended. So again, how do we utilize platforms and make them relevant to our community? And we invited Kamil Hawa, who is one of the masters of Arab type design, and he presented a beautiful philosophy on copyright law. We also invited 2 experts, and we put them in conversation to provide like a guideline and like a quick Q&A for designers who were seeking answers. And the last thing we shared was the archives. This was our last topic, whereby we asked our community, what do you want to learn about? And the designers said, well, you always say, do research. Where do we do this research? And so we started digging out references and posting them on our page, and introducing the authors, the libraries where they can buy them, the publishers, the prices. So we tried to provide our community with useful knowledge on how they can kickstart their research. So now we have this page that is a growing community. We are almost reaching 6,000 followers, but the number really doesn't matter, because what I thought we set out to create, a research space, became a community where we develop knowledge and we share culture. And when I set out thinking we want to do research and conferences and talk and publications and fellowships, turned into connecting generations and knowledge sharing and human networks and finding passions and making friends and celebrating beauty. So even the philosophy of what we want to do shifted after we interacted with our community. And this is why I'm really honored to be with you today, because I see the effort that is being put on the different parts of the Arab world now. I'm really proud of TypeCal and what you're trying to do. I'm really happy with the fact that you are pushing the conversation, that you are putting us together to talk. There is also Yara Khouri starting something in Beirut. She has a brilliant setup coming up. There is Type Arabi in Qatar, who are also working hard. They're a beautiful group of women also. And I'm seeing these women in different parts of the Arab world, in different cities, who are, personal effort, belonging to university or not, but really trying to push the conversation forward. And to me, I think it's time that we start connecting these lines and really creating deeper, more intense conversations on where do we want to take the Arabic script, what do we want to do with our archives, how do we develop our knowledge, but not individually this time, but collectively. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Bahia. Please type in your questions or feel free to raise your hands if you want to directly raise your question. I'm very touched by your talk on many levels. I'm also a product of someone who experienced a revolution, war, having to leave a country, not from an Arab, but Iran, to United States, and now I'm back in Kuwait. So I totally resonated with all the examples that you showed. And for me, it's always been about connection, and it's finding the dots, connecting the dots. And I think these are some of the things that kind of push me back to this part of the world and discovering it. And I'm really pleased to hear your ending your talk with connecting the dots and how important it is for us to preserve, archive, and really work toward this meaningful initiative of gathering our, roots and historical roots. So anyway, questions. We want to hear questions, everyone. Your work is inspirational. Thank you, Bahia.
Thank you. It's very kind of you.
I'm curious about your thoughts about El Cid and the Dubai Expo and plagiarism.
I'm not sure I'm following. I'm working on another book now, so I haven't been following the gossip. So maybe you want to brief me.
Yasmin, would you like to share your insights?
Hi, how are you?
Hi.
I thought, first of all, I have your book on the history of graphic. I really like your work, Bahia. I wish I taught with Miriam and everybody at AUK, so it's a real privilege to be joining. And I am abroad at the moment. I'm in America. But El Cid posted that one of his designs was plagiarized, and I have to look it up. I don't remember which. Somebody please help me. Which pavilion plagiarized his design, and I just wanted to ask you your thoughts about that. But I guess if you haven't seen it, then you don't.
It was the Tunisian pavilion.
Oh, thanks, Haifa. Tunisia. Oh, yeah. Yes.
I think the story was that El Cid had communicated with a company and made a design or something like that, and then the program was shelved, and then someone else took over, and there was something. Anyway, all of a sudden, he found his calligraphy in the Tunisian pavilion on the facade, and he had no clue, and there was no agreement or anything. So there was a lot of coverage, press coverage on plagiarism and all that.
Okay, I think this is healthy because it's starting the conversation. And I think there needs to be, like, as you saw with Type Lab, a series on copyright laws with typography, type designers, artists. This is very common in our part of the world because we don't have proper copyright laws in place, and even if those exist, there's no copyright law enforcement. So I think it's healthy that El Cid brings this to the forefront and that it takes headlines so that there's more awareness about it. But until we really change the legislation and we work with changing our laws and fixing them, I don't think we're going to get anywhere anytime soon. We need to create laws that protect the rights of artists and designers. And in his case, it's very unfortunate. I'm really sad to hear that he had to go through such an experience. And the Tunisian pavilion, out of all the pavilions, which is his home country, this must be quite distressing for him. So I hope he can, I don't know, at least
I think people who follow him went ahead and reposted his post. And I mean, I think, like you said, Instagram is a nice tool to do some kind of activism or social media in general. So I think that's what he ended up doing. But I don't know. I mean, I wanted to know, since you did a panel, that it would have been, I'm curious to know your thoughts. Also, at the end of your talk, you went really fast with the type Arab in Qatar and the one from Lebanon. What was it?
No, Yara Khouri is setting up an Arabic type lab at the American University in Beirut. So there are 4 centers now that are trying to develop knowledge on the Arabic script and engage with the community through the university and through different platforms. So, and they're still budding. So I'm really looking forward for their growth, and I'm really looking forward for the conversation and how these groups of mostly women, from what I've been noticing, will drive the conversation in the region forward.
We have another question from Fatma Al-Ghatan. What advice would you give to a designer that is looking for their external, bigger than myself goal?
Thank you for this question. I love it when it's asked, because I think you should just follow your heart and see what you care for. What do you care about? What is something that you care most for? Is it, it could be anything. It could be the environment. It could be typography. It could be making posters to save the whales. Just find your passion and help your passion, whatever it is. Connect with an NGO, connect with a community, go out, clean trash outside on the street. Whatever you feel your heart is calling for, I think you should do it. And if you can utilize your design skills in serving that cause, that's a big plus, because then you would be learning and you would be also helping. So this would be my advice. I hope it's useful.
Yes, Leila.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
I actually have 2 questions. The first one is I took a look at your website and I saw some of your work and installations, and I was wondering if you're planning on doing any exhibitions, upcoming exhibitions sometime soon, or because I took a look at, also there's an exhibition in the UK. I was just recently there and I didn't get a chance to see that, so I was just wondering if you're planning on having any in Kuwait or the Middle East.
Okay, thank you for asking. It's very kind of you. I'm always busy with a project. So my most recent project is actually in Qatar. I haven't publicly announced it yet, but it's at Northwestern University, and it's a 56-screen video installation reflecting on the concept of persuasion. So I'll tell you now because it's going to be out eventually. So they approached me asking me to reflect on persuasion. And I thought that the ultimate form of persuasion is when you convince someone to give up their life. So my question, the name of the installation is "What Would You Die For?" And in the installation, it's 56 screens. So it's quite like a really nice display where I got to work with video art and reflect on the question of death, from political extremism, military recruitment, up to our instinctive reaction to a mother would die for her child, a child would die for their parent, but also the spectrum in between. So how, because some mothers kill their children and some, you know, so there is always this gray area in this concept of death and the reasons why we die. So I tap on issues like the environment, consumerism, extremism. So it's a very heavy project. I spent a year working on it. And I engage students from 3 universities because I have no more access to walls. I had pre-COVID, I had walls to work on and connect with the community. So I invited students from AUC, from Northwestern University in Qatar, and from Westminster University in London. And they submitted videos, and the videos are also part of my installation. So this is in terms of artwork, and in terms of publications, I'm working on a book on the history of advertising in Egypt. So this is my next research project. So thank you for asking.
That's super exciting, the history of advertising in Egypt. Are you involved in any way with activities related to the Year of Arabic Calligraphy in Saudi? Any exhibitions or programs?
Not yet.
And also she's saying that I hope you do participate in the Islamic Art Biennale in 2022.
I might. So there's still we might. So it's thank you for putting the wish out there, because we're in discussion now. So I will let you know if it happens.
Here's a good question. If I have little knowledge on Arabic typography, where do you recommend I start?
Okay, so in terms of books, there are several now publications on the topic. So and they're all posted on TypeLab. So I would advise you to start on TypeLab. So go to TypeLab, scroll through the books that are there, and pick the ones that you like, that call you. They could be calligraphic, typographic, by artists, and read on them and try to find them. If you can't find them, look at some of the artists have their work posted on, they have websites, and they're on social media. We've provided links to those, so you can also look there. So I always like to start with a book. So, but sometimes people like to start with maybe talks. So there have been talks by many Arabic type designers who are great all over the world. You can look those up, look at the conferences that have hosted them, and look for the recordings of these talks. So books, talks, and connect with the designers. Follow their pages, go to their websites, and interact with them and learn from them.
Any other questions? Second question. First of all, thank you for your answer. Looking forward to seeing you, the upcoming works. My second question, do you experiment before approaching a certain piece of work?
Of course, there's always a research process. You know, we brainstorm, we come up with ideas. If it's an artwork, I go with 10 ideas to my curators. And I say she because for the past 10 years, I've only had women curators. I've had only one man curator, and it was for a street art festival in Norway. But all the rest of my curators are women, which is very interesting to note. And so I come to her with 10 ideas, and then we discuss it, we select 1 or 2, I go back to work, I research, I read, and then we decide on one and we move forward. So there's always a research process in my work.
When it comes to researching and archiving information, how do you know how deep you want to go when it comes to exploring a topic?
Well, there are always constraints with projects. So you have time constraints, you have budget constraints. So, and this is very helpful because things are not open-ended, or else, you know, I would never finish anything. So it's always good to look at your restraints. For example, for the history book, we only had 1 year of funding. So we really needed to finish the grant and visit as many countries as we can with the money that we had. So we always apologize in the beginning of the book, saying this is not a representation of fully of Arab design. This is what we had access to and what our funding allowed us to do. So and this is just the tip of the iceberg. We hope that others will continue, because there are countries that we couldn't access because of, for example, Algeria, we applied for visas and the visas never came. Sudan, we couldn't access Sudan. Syria, I had to smuggle myself from Lebanon to go visit the designers there. Yemen, we couldn't go. So there, Iraq, we couldn't physically go, but we connected with all of the designers and the diaspora, who were very generous with their knowledge. So there are always constraints to the project, and these constraints guide you in your decision-making process. So I would have liked for that research to extend for 5 years. I would have liked to meet a designer from every part of the Arab world and the world, but that's not what I had. I had 1 year of funding, and it will run out if I don't spend it, and I needed to work within that time, and we all needed to work within that time frame, so we did. So I think the constraints limit how deep you can go with your research.
I guess I have a question, and my question has to do with how do you manage your time in between teaching and doing your research, and of course the work you love, and help your passion. I love what you said, help your passion.
Okay, I am super organized. So my time is really very planned, and I work in seasons. So in autumn and fall and spring, I'm teaching, and I dedicate my time to my students and my teaching. And then in winter break and summer break, it's for my writing and my artwork, and I fully dedicate my time for my writing and my artwork. And so I have a pattern now. So anything, and I learned how to say no 1,000 times. It's very difficult, but you need to learn how to say no, because when somebody asks you to, write an article or do a certain thing, but you're busy writing a book now, even no matter how attractive the invitation is, you have to decline or postpone and prioritize and say, thank you for the invitation, but I'm sorry, I'm really on my research now. Maybe we can connect in 6 months or in a year. Sometimes people wait, sometimes people don't have time to wait, and it's okay. It's what's it called? A FOMO? I don't have FOMO. I'm not afraid of missing out on things. It's okay if I miss out on things, because I need to focus on what I have at hand. And now you were telling me about Al-Sid. I'm not really on social media. My daughters do my social media. This is my confession. I don't like, and it's because everybody was telling me I need to post, and I use social media just to share my knowledge, but not to consume, because I don't have time to consume knowledge. I'm generating knowledge from books and my classroom and my students and the talks I engage in. So I would also advise you to cut down on your social media time if you want to be productive. So that's it. Yeah, these are my quick tips.
Well, very important. Thank you. We have time for one last question, 1 or 2 questions. No question. How do you deal with work pressure?
Very good question. Lots of baths and yoga and walks. You need to take care of your health to be able to deal with stress. So you really need to lead a healthy lifestyle and try to disconnect from the negativity in your life. If there are negative people around you, stay away from them. Anybody who tells you you cannot do what you want to do, tell them to not talk to you anymore. Anybody who blocks your dreams, tell them, thank you, but I will follow on with my dream. So stay away from negative energy, take care of your health, try to lead as much healthy lifestyle. Sleep early. I cannot underline how important sleep is. I know it sounds stupid, but sleep is important. And be organized and be realistic with your expectations. So if you get like 4 projects, pick the one that resonates with you the most. If you need money, then work with the projects that pays the most. If you have an idea and you want to play with that idea and you got a client who wants you to play on that idea, so engage with that one and maybe the money becomes minor. Just set your priorities on what would make you happy and what you need and what you want to achieve. So you have to have an eye for short-term goals and long-term goals. And this is why I love writing books, because I have something long to look forward to. There's something always in the back of my mind cooking, and whenever I find something, I plug it. So yeah, these are my quick tips on dealing with pressure.
Sleep early, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah. I have friends that make fun of me because I sleep so early. So one more question? Yes, Leila?
Yes, I have a question about your personal projects in art and design. Do you wait for a certain mood to come for you to produce something, or do you push yourself to do that piece or artwork?
Well, both, honestly, because with street art, it's an emotional process, and I went through quite an intensive experience on the street. So to me, the walls are just trying to come to terms with where we are and our reality now. So the walls are reflections and their personal efforts, and I try to find venues to paint them. And you saw some of them are just quick stencils on the street. Some of them are very big walls. So those are and the gallery work, the institutional work, is the work that is planned and reflected on, and they approach me with a question, and it depends on the question. Like, do I want to engage with, am I ready to engage with this question artistically or not? Sometimes I decline and sometimes I accept. It depends on who I'm working with, because the curator is literally 50% of the work. So if you don't have somebody who you can engage with and understands and helps you nurture your idea and push it forward, you won't develop much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Bahia, I want to thank you for accepting our invitation. We tried to bring Bahia to our Typcal from Home last year, but she did say no. And she said, let's get in touch, in a few months later, and fall, summer, now. So thank you for accepting our...
Thank you for waiting. It's really, it's very kind of you.
Yeah, you are actually quite an inspiration to me. The work that you have been doing, and I'm pretty sure that your students are very lucky to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and it has been a real pleasure and honor connecting with your community, and I really believe we should come together. There's so much to learn from each other. We have so much to share, and I can't wait for us to start connecting these dots together and having more of these conversations together.
That's right. It's all about connecting the dots.
Thomas is saying we need a conference. Yes, Thomas, thank you. We do need a conference soon.
Exactly.
It's so good to see you, Tom. Thank you for coming. It's very kind of you.
Well, I did move out of my chair.
But we can see your beautiful face, so thank you for joining us. But yes,
Okay.
maybe a conference is the right way forward for us. Even if we host an online one, we should consider a conference soon.
Well, in person is absolutely better. I'm getting sick and tired of online conferences.
We are all getting sick and tired of online.
Yes.
Okay, get your vaccines, everyone, and get ready.
Yeah, we're waiting for in-person. We're striving for in-person, and it would be
fine.
a delight to have everyone back to wherever we need to be.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. Stay safe. Have a nice evening. Have a nice day. Thank you, Bahia, and thank you, everyone. We will have, stay connected with us and follow us on Typcal. on Instagram and on our website. And Bahia, thank you so much again.
Pleasure. Thank you. Good night.
And we'll have the recording on YouTube soon for everyone if you want to revisit all of our other talks, and especially this evening's conversation. You'll be able to see it on our YouTube channel that you can visit via the TypeCal website. Blessings to everyone, and thank you all.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Have a beautiful day. Thomas, great seeing you.
Yes, we'll be in
Hey.
touch. You tried to
Yes,
call
we
me.
will.
Let's talk some other time.
All
Soon.
right.
Take care,
Okay.
Thomas.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Yasmin, William.